Welcome back to my series covering the Constitution of the Freedom Founders of the United States of America, more commonly known as the Freedom Constitution. Today we will be covering Article 4, Sections 5 and 6. Section 5 covers the census, and Section 6 covers the Hall of the Intercedent. Sections 7, 8, 9, and 10 get into the weeds about what the Hall of the Intercedent and the Intercedent Representative actually do, so I hope that you'll stick with me through the end of the week to cover those sections as well. As the Intercedent is this new fourth branch of government proposed by the Freedom Founders, I believe Article 4 is fairly important. The other major article to look out for under the Freedom Constitution is the one that lists the rights and responsibilities of citizens, non-citizens, and business entities. But as for now, let's begin with Article 4, Section 5. The Hall of the Intercedent has the sole authority to, and will, conduct a census of all citizens and non-citizens residing in every state and territory of the United States in a period no greater than every 10 years. You can see right off the top, the Hall of the Intercedent is the only government body that is permitted to conduct a census, and it has to be done every 10 years, and no longer a period of time than 10 years. The census may take no longer than 180 days to complete. So what this says is quite on the nose. When the census is conducted every 10 years, it cannot take longer than 6 months from the time it begins to the time it finishes. The census must include all legal residents irrespective of criminal, social, economic, religious, or other characteristics. And as you can see here, it says all legal residents. So if there are residents within the United States who are not legal, they may not be counted in the census. But legal residents do include both legal citizens and legal non-citizens of the United States. It must not include any person who is a tourist, temporary guest, foreign dignitary, official, military member, or otherwise allegiant to and resident of a foreign nation, power, or influence entity, unless such a person is a United States citizen with established permanent residency in the United States. This kind of sounds like double talk, but what it's saying is that anyone who's in the United States as a guest or as a representative of a foreign government or power is not permitted to be counted in the census unless that person is a United States citizen and has the intention of staying in the United States for the remainder of their lives, and then they can be counted in the census. And the census must not seek any personal information beyond establishing how many citizens and non-citizens inhabit the state or territory of the United States as defined by this section. So right here we can see that the census is not permitted to collect any personal information. The only job of the census is to count how many people live in each state and territory. The Hall of the Intercedent will create 500 voting districts within the states and territories of the United States and assign a minimum of 3 voting districts to each state and territory of the United States and assign the remaining voting districts to each state and territory based on the percentage of the total populations to include citizens and non-citizens of each state and territory of the United States. Right now we have 435, I believe, House of Representative voting districts. This increases it to 500 voting districts for the House of Representatives, and it assigns a minimum of 3 voting districts per state instead of the one that we currently have now. And it assigns the remaining voting districts above the 3 states based on population. So we can see that California will probably have more voting districts than Nebraska, whereas California has many more people inhabiting California than Nebraska has. The Hall of the Intercedent will ensure all voting districts within a single state or territory have a total citizenship and non-citizenship population that is no greater or less than 5% of the population of any other voting district within the same state or territory. So what this is saying is that if you live in a state like California, you can't make San Diego one voting district and then make El Centro another voting district, because El Centro and San Diego, the difference in population is much more than 5%. ensure no voting district is bordered by more than 6 other districts, is bordered by less than 2 other districts, has obvious geographic borders, and has no less than 4 and no more than 6 borders, with each border having no greater than 179-degree angle or less than a 30-degree angle with any border with which it is connected. Any border angles that do not meet these requirements will have both of its sides constitute a single border. So this is a little bit technical, but what it's saying is there are specific geographic requirements for voting districts to ensure that they don't have some kind of crazy shape so that legislatures or the intercedent gerrymander voting districts to ensure one political party or group has favorability in a state over another because of irregularly geometric shaped voting districts. And it sets a couple rules, especially in Part 4, or IV, which is 4 in Roman numerals. It sets some requirements that if you have basically a flat line, that counts as one border. You can't have a very modest angle of less than 1 degree. That's 2 different borders to meet the requirements of this portion. G. Assign 1/3 of the voting districts of each state and territory to a Senate voting district within their respective states and territories, where the number of districts cannot be evenly divided into 3. If there is one more district than a number divisible by 3, the remaining district will be added to the Senate district with the lowest total population. Or if there are 2 more districts than a number divisible by 3, the remaining districts will be assigned each of the 2 Senate districts with the lowest total population. So what this is saying is that in every state and territory will be divided into 3 sections. Each section will have an equal number of House of Representative voting districts. If the House of Representative voting districts isn't divisible by 3, the Senate voting district, the 1/3 of the state that has the lowest total population, will receive 1 extra. If there's 2 extra House of Representative voting districts, the voting district, the 1/3 of the state that has the most people or the greatest population, does not receive an extra House of Representative voting district, and the other 2 do. Section 6. The Hall of the Intercedent of each state and territory of the United States will craft all applicable rules and requirements for conducting federal elections within their respective states and territories, to include all elections for the President of the United States, for all members of Congress, special elections, and other elections pertaining to the government of the United States. The Hall of the Intercedent will ensure all citizens within all states and territories are permitted to cast ballots in all federal elections, and, if such a circumstance should arise, may deputize any federal law enforcement required to guarantee the right of every citizen to cast ballots in every federal election without fear, abuse, or reprisal. So what this is saying is the Hall of the Intercedent, which is local to each state or territory, is responsible for conducting every federal election within the United States. And if such a time were to arise where people were in fear and felt like they could not vote, or they were physically being kept from voting, the Hall of the Intercedent would be permitted to take any federal law enforcement agency under their authority during the time of voting to ensure that everyone in the United States who is a United States citizen is permitted to vote without fear, without intimidation, and without being abused. That brings us to the end of Article 4, Section 6. Sections 7 and 8 will be tomorrow, and they cover the intricate details of what the intercedent representative does when the House of Representatives or the Senate take action on any legislation. Please like, share, follow, do all the things if you've enjoyed learning about the Freedom Constitution, also known as the Constitution of the Freedom Founders of the United States. I hope to see you tomorrow, friend.